Another big problem in Florida is affordable housing. There are many areas in the state where people who are in the service industry and other industries can't afford to work in the communities where they have jobs. I know this is a big issue for the Chamber. Can you talk about that?
Well, sure. Workforce housing or affordable workforce housing, it no longer applies to the inner city, these tall buildings where some people live. We're talking about mainstream Florida. Police, teachers, firemen, entry-level managers at the companies that we represent. And what we have in Florida, incomes over the last 5 years in Florida have only gone up about 10% on average. Yet our home values have nearly doubled. Insurance, property insurance, and property taxes have skyrocketed during the same time. So what you have in affordable housing is a perfect storm. House values are high, insurance rates are out of sight, and property taxes are unaffordable now. So what we have to do is we have to fix all of those things at once so Florida becomes an affordable state to live again.
Affordable workforce housing, number one issue after property tax and property insurance across the state, and is part, in fact, those two things are a big part of affordable housing, and paycheck protection.
Affordable housing has always, in the past, been a low-income issue, and yeah, we were concerned about it, but it never touched us personally. Now it's eating away at the fabric of middle America. It's eating away at people that work for your companies. It's eating away at our kids. When it got really passionate for me was when it affected me personally. Two sons, both went to the University of Florida. One graduated and knew that if we didn't find him affordable housing in the area, he was going to move away. And he was a low-maintenance son. A second one, same thing. We knew when he was graduating the University of Florida, if we didn't help find affordable housing for him, a little bit different, he was going to move back into the house. So we were motivated to find kids housing. And having to look at that, we found out very quickly that it's slim to none. And unless you have the ability as a parent to substantially, you bought them the first bike, you helped buy them the first car, and now you got to help buy them the first house. How many people can do that? Go back to the workforce now. It used to be in our company, as early as 3 or 4 years ago, we could not blast employees out of Florida to go populate offices in other parts of the United States. Not that way anymore, because the same thing we're talking about is driving them away. Recruiting. It's hard for us to recruit people to come to Florida now for the same reasons. And other states, even though they're not as attractive and they're not as beautiful and all that kind of stuff, is really kind of driving that out. Just recently, we had one of our best high-end mapping people decide that he was going to move to the north end of Minnesota because it was cheaper to live. Well, lo and behold, we have an office now in the north end of Minnesota somewhere. But you can only play that game so long.
The Florida Chamber recently held a conference on affordable housing and came up with some recommendations.
Number one, we want to remove the housing trust fund caps because there are significant resources that are not available to our communities. Another example is promote regional collaboration using great models like what we see in some of the great regions around the state, where we have to use this as a pivot issue to decide how we plan to use our land in the future, how we plan our transportation corridors, where we live in terms of clustering around those corridors. Establish Florida as a center of excellence for making better connections between centers of education, research, entrepreneurs, because, as you know, we have a great industry in terms of wood products. Why shouldn't we own the transition of this industry into great composite materials? And we have to shape our building code to be ready for new ideas. What's the use of a good idea in Florida if our building code will not allow us to use it? Now, that's chamber business if I've ever seen it. Link building materials and designs to our state's reputation as a center for innovation. And if you haven't heard it already, you're going to hear it all year long. We've got great ideas in this state on new design, innovation, composite design, green buildings, and we're taking them to other places, and we're building it in other markets. We need to have a great reputation and establish that as our legacy. And finally, and I think a critical finding for a business team like this is, Florida's, I'm going to read this out loud, Florida's businesses are virtually unaware of the range of employer-assisted housing solutions. We need to ensure businesses are equipped. What incentives need to be developed to promote this education? Now, we have to do a lot more, but ladies and gentlemen, every time we took a poll around this state at think tanks and caucuses last year, 99% of businesses said they were using no employer-assisted housing resources. And John, I know before the so-called bubble burst, you are having a challenge attracting talent to Florida, and I don't think anything's any different this year. So there are great tools out there for us. This is educational, it's policy, and it's a magnet for investment in this chamber, and we're excited to be a part of it.